Welcome to this digital wellness platform. My name is Mark Joseph and I'm passionate about your mental wellness and happiness just as much as I am about mine. I'm just so excited about you being here with me, as it really is the beginning of your journey with us. Oh wait, I almost forgot. Before we do anything, let's just take a deep breath. Breathing in and release. Doesn't that feel better? I can't remember the last time I sat in a swing. I recall my dad pushing me, and all the while I kept on saying, higher and higher, Dad. It feels really nostalgic. And it really connects me to joy. But I always wasn't that joyful. When I was a child, I suffered from a lot of anxiety, and I think I was born anxious. All my young life, I suffered from anxiety, panic, and worry. My mom and dad were also famous warriors. But I was very fortunate to have learned some focus and calming techniques in my early 20s. And then from there, I traveled to India and the Himalayas. And I began to practice at that time a subject that was not very well known in the Western world. I lived in a temple thereafter for 3 years, and I deepened my understanding of this ancient but very relevant practice for my own mental health relief. When I came out of the temple, I realized that the Western scientific community had exploded with empirical evidence of the benefits of such practices. Neuroscience specifically leading the field of research, spearheaded by the famous Dr. John Kabat-Zinn from the University of Massachusetts, and Ellen Langer from Harvard University, and Sarah Lazar at Harvard for her groundbreaking work in neuroscience. But it was really Sarah Lazar and Dr. Richard Davidson who helped contribute to the term neuroplasticity. And this is really our ability, or our brain's ability, to change shape according to what we focus on or what we think about. In the past 3 years, we've partnered with psychologists, with doctors, with neuroscientists, with teachers from leading international universities to find the essential practices to shape our brain for the better. Every day I run live and recorded programs for global audiences, and the demand for such facilitation has really just grown exponentially, like a little acorn into a big tree. It's been a time of massive change and upheaval. The fourth industrial revolution has been really fast-tracked by the global pandemic, and what we've adapted to in just a year and a few months could have really taken us 10 years for it to become a reality. But now we might be struggling to keep up with all these changes. In this new era we find ourselves in now calls for a new kind of support, which has actually been around for a very long time. It's time for opening up out of our surviving cocoon and to move to our right to thrive, to literally take off with new wings. I find myself here in the cradle of humankind, and I'm on a trail for the Trail of Littlefoot, otherwise known as Australopithecus prometheus. And what makes Littlefoot so special is that between 4.1 million and 3.3 million years ago, she is one of our most ancient human ancestors, and her skeleton was found almost complete. Can you believe it? It's such a rare find. It was like she wanted to be found to teach us something. Knowing our history can shape our future, and I'm amazed at how far we've come over millions of years of survival. But I'm also keenly aware of how our ancient neural wiring is affecting our current behavior and our worries. It's not suited for our modern world. The way our brain and nervous system reacts specifically to stress and threat. But because of neuroplasticity and our ability to pioneer change, it is my life's work to introduce to you a mindful revolution. Specific practices and theory will impact your worldview and affect your mental well-being for the better. Australopithecus prometheus. My goodness, how did I remember that word? It's interesting about the name they chose for the discovery of Littlefoot, the second part, our ancient ancestor, Prometheus. Prometheus was a Greek god who stole the fire from the gods and gave it to humans. And introducing these ideas and practices kind of feels like that in a way of being that shifts us from our cautious ancestors to an open-minded, liberated existence. I'd like to think that you being here is like a mental floss for your mental hygiene. I mean, you brushed your teeth this morning, right? Well, of course you did. In the mindful revolution we are now going through, thankfully to neuroscience, we know now that we can look after our brain just as much as we look after our teeth. Isn't that something? We need to understand that a calm mind also has great ideas and is very productive. And as your powers of self-awareness and introspection grow, so does your ability to manage yourself well and to manage others well, which are the cornerstones of emotional intelligence, which is the #1 predictor of success in our modern world. Let's discover what a well mind truly looks like and what a well mind really feels like. And you may find yourself here more than you think. We're looking at how to build our brain in all the right ways. And the question really as we open this is, how good is our focus? Let's try a little exercise. How good is your focus? Taking one hand and putting it on top of the other and then dropping that into your lap. Okay? So we're going to be just focusing on our hands, right? So just drop them down into your lap, one hand on top of the other. And let's just for 2 minutes try as hard as we can to just focus on one hand on top of the other. Just the contact with your hands, the warmth, the feeling of it, whatever you can see or feel or decide about this practice, keeping your attention there, no other thoughts at all, no distractions, sensations, sounds, whatever, just keeping it there for 2 minutes. Let's try now. Focus, focus, focus. Your mind must not wander. Keep your mind there. Okay, let's end this focus. So, the question is, were you able to stay focused on your hands the whole time? I couldn't. Come on, be honest. Were you able to stay 100% focused the whole time? And the majority of people I ask say, absolutely not. That our minds are just wandering all the time. And it's normal, okay? It's normal. I've been teaching meditation for decades, and people have just jumped off saying, I can't do this. My mind is just too busy. But you know what? It's the case for everyone. Unless you're like an Olympian mindfulness practitioner in the Himalayan cave or something. The other question is, do you think it's possible to increase your focus so that maybe one day you could be a little bit more of that Olympian mindfulness practitioner? Maybe even just 2% of that? Yeah, I know you're nodding your head saying it's possible. Yeah. We've all learned to be really mindful of our hands. We wash our hands now more than ever. We sanitize our hands. We are careful where we put our hands. We try not to touch our face, to touch surfaces. If we go to the mall, we try not to touch the railing of the escalator or the staircase. And this is mindfulness, really, using our mindfulness to keep us safe and keep us well. Mindfulness brings us into the moment. What are we actually doing? And helps us to be less on autopilot. We can find ourselves often during the day flying off into an unknown future or visiting a past where we feel longing or regret. And how do we feel if we go off into the future? Most people tell me they feel a sense of anxiety. Our ability to focus and to stay present is a power of our mental fitness. As George Lucas says, your focus determines your reality. So what is your reality? What is our reality? What are we focusing on? And when we are worrying about a future that hasn't happened, it is a survival mechanism that's inbuilt in us. For thousands and thousands of years of hunting and gathering, of remembering that particular terrain, there was a wild beast that could have taken my life. I have a memory. I recall that memory. I play it over and over and over and over again about what I did or what worked, what didn't work, what I could have done differently. And then going into that terrain, I think about what I could expect. It served us well as a human race, this anxiety, this rumination, and it kept us alive. But in this modern day culture, is it really serving us that well? The prevalence of ill mental health is skyrocketing, and on the back of the pandemic, we're trying to flatten the stress curve. More and more to bring ourselves into this moment where it's happy and calm and peaceful. But yet we fly off again like time travelers into the future and the past. We don't have to fear as much as we used to as hunter-gatherers. But yet we do. We have the same stress responses over small things. We don't have to fight for our survival as we used to. We can live a better life. We can live a happier existence in the now by being present. We are able to take the next leap in our evolution, to really feel what happiness could look like, to feel like. It's exciting times. came across this really amazing gadget. It's called the Muse, and it's a brain sensor. So you basically put it on your head like this, and it fits nicely against your forehead, it tucks behind your ears, and then you can see on your app, it connects and it calibrates with your brain. And then I meditate, and if my mind is wandering, it makes a sound of rain on the app, falling rain. And if my mind is focused, it goes quiet and I hear little birdies tweeting. And every time the little birdie tweets, I get a point. If I get so many points, I can have a competition with my 12-year-old son to see how many points he can get. And in this way, I help him to focus. And I think of a near future where you go on a date, you meet someone online, you don't know them, you sit at the restaurant, and before you order the wine, there's another device that's more advanced than the Muse. You put it on their head, and you got an app on your phone, and you scan that person's brain. And you say, look, this has to be done before we engage, before we court. And then your phone says, oops, no. And you say, I'm sorry, your amygdala is way too big, which tells me that you are emotional, stressed, and generally out of control. Your prefrontal cortex, responsible for you being cool, calm, collected, making good decisions, etc. It's just really not as thick as it should be. And, oh my word, your hippocampus is also suffering. And that's probably due to stress. Your memory and learning is surely damaged. Your temporal to insular pole shows that you haven't been thinking thoughts of loving kindness and altruism lately. I mean, does this sound like science fiction to you? Well, it's not really. It's happening. Neuroscience is able to tell if your brain is functioning in these ways. How fit is your brain? How fit is your brain? Do we know? Your bodies might be attractive and fit and strong, but how fit is our brain? Neuroscience can tell if we are consumed by stress or if we are able to be resilient. How would that look on an interview? No, we don't want to see your CV. Just put this thing on your head and we'll find out who you really are. Neuroscientist Sarah Lazar, who really pioneered this work, and she's coined the term neuroplasticity. It means that our brain changes shape. It's the plasticity of the brain. It can change shape. But stress affects the way our brains function, according to this research. It alters the shape of our brain, stress, and how various parts of the brain speak to each other. Stress begins with something called the hypothalamus pituitary axis, or the HPA. And it's a series of interactions between endocrine glands in the brain and also on the kidneys, which control our reaction to stress. It's a very ancient system, very old system. We come from a long lineage of this functioning. So when your brain detects a stressful situation, the HPA axis is instantly activated and releases a hormone called cortisol, which primes your body for a fight or a flight, okay? Or maybe a freeze, which is very good in the old days if you encounter a wild beast or an attacking tribe. But high levels of cortisol over a long period of time wreak havoc on your brain. For example, chronic stress increases the activity level and number of neural connections in the amygdala and your brain's fear center. And in the modern life, we have much more stress than ever before, than your parents did or your grandparents or their parents. So what happens is the amygdala at the back of the head shuts down the prefrontal cortex and the hippocampus. So the amygdala comes in like the Hulk and smash. And it's really about fight, flight, or freeze. So it prepares our body for a fight. It shuts down smarty pants, which is prefrontal cortex. It affects the librarian, which is the hippocampus. And it turns us into a fighting machine, which is not so good.
when we are dealing with in a meeting or emails or work deadlines or overwhelm or issues at home. We're not going to fight or run away, but this is a very ancient response. So understanding this, what can we do? So as these levels of cortisol rise, electrical signals in your hippocampus, remember that part of your brain that is associated with learning, memory, and stress control, well, that deteriorates. The hippocampus also inhibits the activity of the HPA axis. So when it weakens, so is your ability to control your stress. It's kind of like a vicious cycle. And that's not all though. Cortisol can literally cause your brain to shrink in size. And too much of it results in the loss of synaptic connections between neurons and the shrinking of your prefrontal cortex, which makes us human. And the prefrontal cortex regulates your concentration, your decision making, your judgments, your social interactions. Stress also leads to fewer new brain cells being made in the hippocampus. This means that chronic stress might make it harder to learn and remember things, and also sets the stage for more serious problems like depression and later Alzheimer's. I recall as being a young boy at school having panic anxiety attacks before exams, throwing up in the bathroom, and then sitting in the exam and feeling so overwhelmed with stress that I can't remember what I had studied weeks before because my hippocampus was being affected by my stress response. And if someone at school had taught me how to regulate myself through mindfulness and breath work, I might have been able to do a lot better at school. But no one told me. No one helped me. And even these days when I speak to teachers, they say, we don't have time to take 3 breaths before the class. We don't have time to do that with our children. Our schedule is just too busy. So are we creating another generation of human doings rather than human beings? And actually, at the end of the day, it will affect our productivity and our levels of happiness.
We're going to experience a practice of building the brain, as we've been discussing. So this is actually how you do it. We use a technique called mindfulness, which is quite new in the Western world. It's been around since the 80s, but very, very old in Asia. And we've discussed how important it is, according to neuroscience, how it builds your brain in all the right ways. So we choose a comfortable seat. You can sit in a normal chair if you like. You don't have to sit on a cushion. If you are sitting on a cushion, you can cross your legs. If you're sitting in a chair, your feet firmly on the ground, and your back nice and straight. You can just drop your chin slightly, your shoulders level, and don't take yourself too seriously. We're going to start with 3 deep, beautiful breaths, just to calm the nervous system and to calm your brain. Because when you breathe slowly, you're telling yourself that you are not running from a predator. Remember the ancient body in a modern world. So we're doing a bit of a brain hack by breathing. Breathing deeply through the nostrils, inhaling. And then slowly exhaling it out the nose. Good. Another one, breathing in through the nose, nice and smooth. And then gently exhaling it out the nostrils. And last one, breathing in through the nostrils. Fill those lungs. Open your mouth and gently sigh the breath out. Coming out to a normal breath. And if you can, breathing through the nostrils, nice and calm, with control and slow. Just something that feels comfortable to you, just quite natural, not forced. And you may even hear yourself breathing, that's okay. And one way to come out of autopilot is to experience the here and the now. As you breathe, you can hear yourself breathing. There may be birds tweeting. Our autopilot brain has a tendency of shooting off into the future that doesn't exist, or getting lost in the past. If we focus on our breath and what is now in the moment, we are here. Resting your awareness just on the simple process of breathing. And you may feel in your body the breath as you inhale and exhale. Relax, relax, relax. As you're doing this, your mind might start thinking other thoughts. You may be wondering, why am I doing this? Or thinking about what's for breakfast or lunch or dinner. And there's another part of our mind which is the observer, the meta awareness. And we gently encourage the subject of mind, which is like a little puppy wandering around, to say, come back. Come back to this moment, to my breath. And the many distractions, sound, sensations, thoughts. Just keep saying, come back. And every time we encourage the mind to return, it's the same as one repetition for building your brain, for building your prefrontal cortex as you focus. Every time you say, "Come back, little puppy," the prefrontal cortex gets thicker, according to neuroscience. And this is how you train your brain in mental wellness. What we call the mechanics of mindfulness. Give up on the idea of perfect focus. That may come over time as you practice. But for now, be happy that your brain has started building in all the right places. Relax, relax, relax. Resting gently on your breath, nice and easy. It's just this breath and that breath. Breathing in, I know I'm breathing in. Breathing out, I know that I'm breathing out. That's good. So now we're gently coming to the end of this practice. Let's take in a nice deep inhalation, breathing in through the nose. And open the mouth, gently sigh the breath out. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. So there we go. Maybe this is the first time you practiced a real mindfulness session. You have just started building your brain in all the right places. And in the same way that our body benefits from physical health, our brain benefits from this form of mental fitness. Now you know. This is the Mindful Revolution.